That is clean. That is clean. Not a single static, dude.
Wow, wow, wow.
Are we on the grid finally? Jeez.
Let's do this thing.
All right, cool.
Loyiso Mkize in the house.
Oh, okay. I like the entry. That's fun. In the house. Yeah, I can still do that.
I'm half really excited to be chatting to you and half exciting that the internet is working. It was combined.
Yeah, and there's still that bit of relief. We can't really celebrate that much yet. I'm still, edge of my seat. Hopefully it doesn't fail on us, but yeah, it's good to be on.
You're a cautious type, eh? You don't just jump in. You want to check stuff out. You want to make sure you understand it all.
Yeah, I like to map everything first, but I play it down. I try to sound and seem as impulsive as possible, but I'm not.
I get that because we've been speaking about a project for a year, maybe a year and a bit. Takes you like the fishing rod. I've got to really go like really slow, reel you in really slowly.
slowly, but when it happens, and I can guarantee this, but when it happens, it becomes gold. So hopefully, my coolness when it comes to time is made up for by the work, So,
what you drinking, Loyiso, tonight?
I'm having wine, dude.
Nice. Any particular wine? Are you a wine guy? Or you
not really. My wife is actually more of a wine person. I'll have anything. I do prefer Pinotage, so we're having that tonight. But yeah, geez, I'm an easy guy. I'm a beer dude, actually.
I'm
a craft beer guy. So.
Do you? Oh, nice, craft beer. Do you? Okay, so here's your Do you? If you've got a beer in the fridge, at the end of the day, do you take one out and drink one, or do you prefer to socially drink, or you hit 6-pack before you do anything?
No, I think, you know what? In light of COVID and how you have to sort of make your space both a working space and a chillax space, things fall in between the cracks. And for me, it's been I can have a beer at the end of the day. That's fine. I'm usually a casual drinker though. It's really chill stuff. It's not a big deal.
I got to tell you, so tonight I'm drinking my favorite whiskey. I chose it. So bourbon. Every show I drink different whiskeys, but this is the one I like the most, and I saved it for you. So this is it's called Bullet, and I really there's my whiskeys for each show, but this is the main one. So I wanted to do something special for you. So
Bullet.
So when we one day do this show in person, we'll both be drinking Bullet.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to that. Could go well right now this time of the year, dude. And a bourbon is cheers.
Are you a bourbon guy?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, me too. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Oh man, you're torturing me on this side, hey.
You chose wine, bro. The lockdown's finished, dude. You could have bought something.
No. This time it was the wife's decision. So I was like, you know what? I'm going with it. I'm not even going to kick and scream.
I want to talk about Kwezi, but I want to talk about Batman first. Because one thing led to the other. So let's go in reverse.
Oh, yeah?
So this is my question.
Is this Batman, the bad boy we're talking about?
Holy shit. There it is.
Is this the bad boy you're talking about?
I've been looking. You promised that you'd give me one of those. Wow. I mean, I don't even know what to say.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah. First, you tell me something, then I'll interrupt you.
No, it's not a big deal. I mean, look, it is actually a big deal in the sense that it's my debut.
Oh, cool, bro.
My my DC debut, and it's for the fact that there's a lot of people that do work, whether it's penciling, whether it's inking, coloring for DC, and have been doing for a while, just to join that roster for me is like a huge notch. I don't know. I mean, I guess I also look at it from the context of from South Africa. So this is also a huge thing. I think only like another one artist, Jason Masters, has done stuff for DC. So it's quite a huge deal to work on. I got a contact from DC editorial and said, "Hey, man, I've got a 10-pager for Batwing.
This is
Luke
so
Fox.
nuts.
Do you want to have a go at it?" So I was like, "Yeah, of course, dude. Just bring it on." And it was
How did
also
they find you?
time. How they found me, the contact was Ben Abernathy, who's an editor at DC. He was at Comic-Con Africa in Johannesburg back in 2018, the first Comic-Con Africa. So, credit is due to Comic-Con Africa being a hub that brings the talent of South Africa and some of Africa's talent, makes it available in one arena, in one space, comic book creators, most importantly, they managed to invite some international, guys, including, Ben, who's from DC, and a good friend of mine as well, who's also co-runs Comic-Con Africa as well, Patrick Duvenash. He was the main link, and he's a huge comic book fan and a comic book supporter. So props to him also for making the initial introductions, because we need people that are able to sell what we were able to do to the rest of the world, and you need people that can bridge those gaps. A lot of the times we as artists can't so well. So it was a lot of hands sort of joining together that made it possible for them to even see my work firsthand. So.
You're very cool about this. I mean, this is a massive thing, and obviously the start as well. It's the start of a relationship with DC, and not only that, it's fucking Batman. It's not Superman. It's not Spider-Man. It's fucking Batman. Like
it is.
You got the best one, or Batwing.
Well, Batwing, and I must stress that it is Batwing, Luke Fox, who's Lucius Fox's son. And you'll know Lucius Fox is the tech advisor for Bruce Wayne. So that story goes that way. But part of the Bat family, it's not really nice that he's named after the bats, flying craft of the Batwing. But it makes, look, he's such a cool character. I like the fact that he's not a cliche, and there's some really cool stuff about him. It's like he's basically the DC Iron Man, if you will. So if you could think of the character that way, it fits the bill, and it was pretty cool just to explore the character on a typical night out in Gotham City, where he has to, chase down, the Enigma, and he happens to, cross paths with Killer Croc. And these are characters that I was drawing as a kid, and watching in watching in cartoons, dude. So like the fact that I now have a script to read from, written very well and very eloquently, very smoothly by Camus Johnson, who actually plays Batwing in the show Batwoman right now, actually. So it was such a nice coming full circle, very synchronous, very easy process to actually happen. I mean, the whole process from getting the script to getting the comic book done was very smooth. It was a matter of a month and a half, and we were already looking at something that was really tight. So yeah, it was quite a huge growth experience, but also just like thrown into deep water, different method altogether, but then really nice attention to detail. I mean, it's definitely a step up from what I'm used to back here at home, but I managed to float pretty well.
The one thing I would really like to understand is and I'm sure when you first started making your own comics. You doing everything. You're coming up with the story, you're writing the script, you're doing all the stuff, right? But now you're in like the league of all of the roles are separate. The thing I don't really understand, to be honest, is what it like. If you could explain a little bit about who does what in the thing and what was your role in this.
Right. So there's a standard program or process from A to Z for any comic book production. So you'll have your writers, then you'll have your storyboarders / illustrator or penciler. You'll have your inker, you'll have your colorists, and you'll have your letterers who put in the letters from the script onto the artwork.
So there's a different person who's drawing pictures from the person who has to ink the words.
Who has to ink? Yeah, exactly. So it's a different person. From the writer is a different person. Are
there hierarchies? In my case, inkers look down on the letter people like, "Oh, your job's easy." That guy's got a cushy job. Just need to fucking write letters.
It depends if you're that way inclined. I mean, like I'm sure, and I've probably experienced a lot of stuff like that where guys rock up and I'm like, award-winning illustrator or penciler, and you're just working with some novice inker. Funny enough, inkers always get the butt of the joke, and it's like it's in principle it is a craft of its own to be an inker, to take work from pencil, scan it in, and then draw lines over it. Nice, neat, and expressive, nicely etched stuff, finished work on Photoshop. There's craft to that as well. But hey, man, someone's got to take the beating for it, and I'm just lucky to be in the in the driver's seat where. As a penciler, what's really cool and was a huge draw card for me is like, and I constantly go back to being a penciler for comic books. I just can't stop because there's a creative control that you've got. You get a script, and much like a film director, you get to choose your shots. You get to choose and orchestrate how this thing will look from the first page to the last page. So, the script can be as tight and as descriptive as possible, but until it's realized, until the words become actual visual, it's that, and that's exactly where I like to be, the sweet spot where I get to decide that, okay, fine, yes, he's, for instance, in this case, Batwing or Luke Fox is jumping into action, first page, right, and he's going into the sewers as he typically would, but this time around, how do I want to showcase the sewers? And what's the layout for the whole comic book, and then plotting where the action will happen, where the start, with the middle point, and where the climax of the story will take place. So there's a lot of I guess I've gotten into that space in my career where I like to go into the nitty-gritties and plan it out and direct all the stuff, all the moving parts. So as a penciler, I get to do that. And look, it's nothing fancy. And I'll just show you, like,
I was actually going to ask you, show me the panel you're most proud of and why. Oh,
okay. So this is like stuff that I've been working on recently. It's still hush.
Not anymore.
But these are, well, I mean, there's only so much you do know of these scribbles, right? Yeah. So it's a project that's up and coming, but what you just saw now was more like thumbnails that will come before me actually penciling. Get the script and I'll do some thumbnails of each and every page so that the guys can have a look. It's more like a storyboard. Give the thumbs up and then I go ahead and pencil. But I will show you my favorite page from the comic book a bit later.
I want to see.
I just have to scrunch.
Bro, you've got it in your hands even.
Hey?
I'm just very happy to know you. This is very exciting, this thing you've just done. Well, all the things you're
thanks,
doing,
man. Thanks. It doesn't seem like it from this side, but yeah, I mean, I must admit it is like and I mean it every single time I say it, it is definitely a dream come true to become like a DC artist. But, it's only when you get there that you realize, oh, okay, so this is not actually the destination. It's just like you're just carrying on, So it's just nice to have gotten here and not have made, I haven't had to. How can I put it? I guess I have worked really grafted over the years, but it's really hard to sort of like put all of that graft together and fully appreciate it because a lot of it is fun. So you sort of like in a way stumble to your next milestone. So and they kind of stumbled into this milestone because I was just doing my thing, and like I said earlier on, the link with the Ben Abernathys of the world and them seeing my work and then going back to DC and saying, hey, maybe I met this guy in South Africa and he's pretty cool. Stuff is pretty cool as well. Should we try him out? I mean, you can't have control over that, so it's just nice to be in the pot now.
You're in the pot because you just put your head down and you're making cool shit. That's what you can network all you want, but you have your track record is epic. The poster behind you says it all. You've broken ground in that space. You're pioneering in that space. Your work is epic, and that's why when they go back there, they must have met 100 people while they were down here, but they put your name for it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I guess, and then like I know all about the, especially the con. You go to Comic-Con, whether it's Comic-Con Africa, Comic-Con Cape Town, Comic-Con San Diego, New York, you name it. You're always, as a comic book creator, you're like you're a hopeful. You've got your portfolio with you, and you're hoping that one of the big dogs sees your stuff and wants to put you on. Like it's like the age old like a fairy tale moment for any comic book creator. Like, and we're very niche. Remember that. I mean, we're in South Africa, so it's pretty niche. The just the industry itself in South Africa. It just didn't pick up and gain ground at a time where it was fertile ground for it to do that. I mean, comic book industry in America went through the gold, silver age, etc., and this was still in the previous century. So, and that was in technology, obviously had a role to play with how successful comic books were, paperback. In every corner store, and then that culture that comes with comic books, that made sense for that there. But yeah, I can tell you now. I mean, activating the comic book industry in South Africa has always been like a different ball game. From my first job as illustrator for Supa Strikas, it was the same thing. A different model had to be adapted for South African readers. How could they access the books? So, and that's that determines everything.
Were you, if you were illustrating for Supa Strikas, were you part of the initial team on that project? I mean, because that project, no, you just came in you just worked on it.
I just worked on it, so I'm pretty new school. I mean, when they started that, I was probably in standard 6.
Maybe you were an overachiever. What do I know?
Hey, you never know. Hey, like you know what? I actually should have kept that up in the air for people to sort of like.
I was working on Supa Strikas when I was 6. That's how I got my start.
In the world of overachievers, I'd probably fit in, but yeah, at some point, I gotta tone it down. No, I mean, I was in my second year graphic design. Studying graphic design here in Cape Tech, actually. So I heard from a mate of mine that so the Supa Striker or the Striker Entertainment Studios company name
R.I.P.
was in Woodstock. All right. Can we be nice, please? Can we be nice? Actually, you know what? On the contrary, like huge applause to them. I mean, like what a successful run, to put together. They've had a run. They've had quite a heck of a run.
I was saying R.I.P. because it was a tragedy that it had to end.
Yeah, it was definitely a tragedy that they had to end. You know, from 2001, and that whole story, a soccer comic book from South Africa, and these guys are virtually soccer superheroes in a way, you know.
Still has millions of views on YouTube. I mean, it's one of the biggest things on YouTube. Still, all these years and years later.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think also what they were smart about was allowing the comic book to quickly adapt into animation.
Mm.
You know, it's the conversation, right, about understanding that comic books had a huge, glory days. You know, I mean, they had glory days back then where people were going out and buying comic books by the droves, but that also moved and hibernated and adapted into animation. Come the 70s, 80s, etc., or even 60s. So with a lot of the titles that we all know, whether it's Spider-Man, Captain America, Fantastic Four in the 70s was huge, and all these other titles now that have come back. Masters of the Universe became back right just now as well.
How crazy is that? Have you watched it yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't had time to binge anything, dude. Like, I've got to come back onto the grid. But like, just going back to that, it's yeah. I mean, look, they adapted. Supa Strikas was smart to adapt, and that comes with having an able-bodied team. And it was the first place that I ever worked at where everyone was an artist virtually. That was my first and last job. And I must say, man, it was a heck of a feat. Kudos to them for putting together a working studio in South Africa, making comics for a living. Like my 9 to 5 for a good 7 years was making comics, and a lot of artists that we now know and celebrate have gone through the mill, through Supa Strikas specifically, or Striker Entertainment, and so it was a really good, very rare space to be in. Cultivating people's talents and people growing there to understand what their talents are, and moving on to bigger, better things. Lots of guys that are now working in other companies, guys that now working at Triggerfish. Other guys already have made their own IPs and their own stories that are now being adapted into animations. There's so many artists. I'd love to name drop a few, but
who was the mad genius? Who was responsible for Supa Strikas? Who's the guy whose vision this was?
Okay, so as I understand it, the first illustrator, the first guy to put pencil to paper and design the characters was Loyiso Mkize. He joined a small team of guys who had just the idea, including a guy by the name of Alex Kramer. And that was back in 2001. And Bonisa, who still is quite a heck of an illustrator. Actually, when I came in, fresh as a novice, I learned the ropes of a lot of stuff that you need to learn to get the mechanics of making comics work from him. So, he was quite instrumental, not only in designing the characters, the bulk of the characters and how they look now, but also for setting the style, or setting the benchmark for that comic book and the style that everyone has come to know. Remember, people were, couldn't wait for every month for Sunday when Sunday Times newspaper comes out and you get the comic book that comes free with that, and this is something that it came for free. It came with the newspaper for free, right? So that meant a lot more hands. It fell on a lot more hands, and it really, it really made or formed that benchmark, a very clear benchmark, because no one else was doing it or working at that pace just that productivity level and standard. It was just something crazy. So when I came on board in 2007, end of 2007, I think. First it was a summer job, and then I jumped on in and started doing weeklies for them, like as a freelance agent. Imagine. And so I mean, like, again, like I said, it's really rare, and kudos to them for putting together something like that, because I think it gave birth to a lot of artists now, definitely in South Africa.
And then from there, the birth of Kwezi.
Oh yeah. Oh, the birth of Kwezi. Yeah, you know.
I mean, it's one thing to have an idea. It's another thing to draw your idea. It's another thing to put it. It's a whole different thing to actually get a comic made, printed, and into the world. And if you go to the bookshop and look in like the local comic book section, there is essentially you and Bitter Comics. That's pretty much the range.
Right.
Which is credit for getting it done.
It's credit for getting it done. I think, you know what, I can sum it up to one thing. It's just having the nerve to do it, and really, like, it's really just having the nerve to do it, and understanding that, you know, once it's there, it can't not be there anymore. You know, so I mean, and a lot of artists, I'm sure, can relate to this. That, you know, it takes so much to get your idea out of your head and onto paper, but to get it further and out there to people put it out there for people to scrutinize, have a look at, and say, this is good, this is not good. I mean, it takes so much. So an idea like Kwezi, I think, needed me to be that young also, I guess, at the time. So I had to be properly naive to what it actually means to start a project like this. So I had a proper head start, just burst off the starting block, not knowing where the hell I was going with it. I think, and you know, much like anything else, people gravitate to it. It grows its own legs. You start to feel out. You know, you put your feelers out, and, you know, as you move forward from the first episode, second episode, now it's not just you. You know, I was lucky to have, you know, Clyde Beach, who creative directs now, but was a colorist on the project earlier on, and we were colleagues at Supa Strikas as well, so that was kind of cool. So we did the Kwezi. So he helped me out with Kwezi in the beginning, like you know, as a after work gig, a non-paying gig at the time, definitely. So it was just like out of passion. I was like, dude, man, listen, it's gonna work, and you know, and you know, some of my you know, colleagues at the time, you know, Loyiso. A lot of guys that have tried comic books or superhero comic books in South Africa, they just don't work. What kind of superhero is going to come out here? And remember, we're working from the metric of a superhero, from the reference point of the Marvel universe or the DC universe. So anything superhero, it clashes with the idea of a South African superhero with with tights and a cape. I don't know, bro. I don't know if that's going to work. And that was true. I mean, it couldn't work like that way. So, but luckily for me, like my mate Clyde was, him and myself were open to the chance of it just being different, you know, and just following that, you know. When I started designing the characters initially, actually, it was just about just flipping it. I mean, it's really not nothing extra special. It was a matter of the subversion of the comic book culture, you know, against a South African backdrop, and how that works and how that might work. Would we even call them superheroes? How does the landscape react to characters like that from a premise like that. So it quickly became, okay, he's got to have, Kwezi is a 19-year-old urban city dweller, discovers he's got powers. He's torn between his lifelong mission to become a celebrity or someone like that, someone just special and celebrated for whatever reason, doesn't really care. It's always been just about the fame. He has to choose between that or using these powers that he's now, mysteriously received, right, for a greater good. So of course it is a coming of age story, but you've got now like the premise, right? You've got the context. You've got South Africa. You've got Johannesburg. You've got a Basotho guy, right, on to the side. Mohau. You've got Khoi, right? You've got Azania, and all of them speak, a different language to our cultures. They represent our different cultures so well and elegantly. And funny enough, even their powers became easy to explore and see what we could do with their powers. Not to. I mean, again, like I wanted to create a clear balance with the characters, so it's not based on hectic pseudoscience that you'd find otherwise in the Marvel comic. Not for any other reason, but but the fact that I just wanted it to feel different. So there's no gamma rays out here, or any other pseudoscience that would otherwise
it's kind of modernized. It's modern.
I wouldn't say modern. It's just a different perspective. It's a different veil. It's a different location. So then whatever that comes with. I mean, you can think of you can take it back to folklore. You can look at it from position of folklore in South Africa or Africa. You can look at it from a lot of how can I put it? There's a lot of information that is constantly dug up or reintroduced into the mainstream about just the continent, its people, and just the amazing stuff that happens in our wake. And I'm sure a lot of stuff, as well. Like I was like, it must have been 2013 when I was reading about the Dogon in Mali, right? And it's like a tribe that can, pinpoint, star systems, like in the constellation, and like in cave drawings or etchings on the sand, right? And this is a knowledge that's been passed down from generation to generation. Spanning, millennia actually. So you start to find that, okay, fine, there's, information moves in different tangents, and it's, and the dominant information is whoever's popping at the time. But that doesn't mean that, other stuff isn't happening, parallel to the common or to the dominant flow of things, so like cultures like that can be forgotten, and it's comics like this that can re-energize that scope, or looking at us, or looking at the continent just as a whole as a breeding ground for new ideas. I mean, it's not just superheroes. We could go into fantasy, we could go into sci-fi. I think that's my next territory that I'm going into, fantasy and sci-fi. There's so much more room to start playing with there. So I think it's, all things said, I think it was just Kwezi as a concept is just an opening a portal into how we can reimagine ourselves. And if once we start that, it just doesn't stop. And I've seen a lot more stuff coming out now. For the past 6, 7, 8 years, lots more stuff has been coming out from different creators. Yep.
I mean, that's what I think when I read Kwezi, it's what's so powerful about it is you feel like, I mean, the work feels entertaining but important. Like you really are saying a lot when with what you're trying to do. I've got a bit of a cheesy question, but I want you to think about it, right? But how are the characters in Kwezi? How are you like them? And I know that artists, we put ourselves into our work and we hide ourselves in there. We're in there loud and clear. How are you like, or where are you in these characters, especially in Kwezi?
I've always really batted that question, like really.
Well, I'm batting it back.
As you would, I'm sure. Yeah. Ah, man. Right. But you know what? Probably in Kwezi, I'd find a lot of similarities because, even from conception, a lot of, you leave a lot of your own DNA in the characters. But like, just like, as an artist, you... I think the loudness. I can be a very loud person. People think I've this opinion of me that I'm probably something of an introvert, but I'm not. So the out there-ness of the characters definitely probably similar to me in a certain way, but I really didn't want to make it autobiographical in that sense, because from the starting point, I was already including other people's ideas on the project, so there wasn't enough room to ruminate on my own ideas. I always do have that room, but not as much for me to be, stomping the ground and just saying, I want this character to say this, or do this, and do this. It wasn't autobiographical in that sense. It was more
I hear you. I hear the bat. I can hear the bat go clack. But you know what? This is a storytelling. Okay, so you're a great artist, there's no doubt it. But the thing you are through your art is a great storyteller. And as we tell stories, we can't help but tell some of our own stories. And I'm not asking you to say, I am like Kwezi because I'm loud, or I really want to do, I was looking for something subtler. Like,
Okay, I'll tell you what is the most subtle. Okay. You know what? I'll concede. I wanted to just give you something generic, but you dug, so I'll reward you. So you know what? The fact that Kwezi is new to the city, is relatively new to the city himself, right? So he grew up and came from a humble village, the coastline of the Eastern Cape, to a very humble family, and he had his own very out there ideas, and that couldn't be so he couldn't pretty much be contained by his parents. There's a rivalry that he's got with his own parents, and particularly his dad, and that's how the narrative goes. Whatever. But he runs away from home to the big city, right? To Joburg, or Gold City in the book. And I think there's a real parallel there. There's leaving the home of comfort and what's familiar to you to the outside world was something that I kind of had to do. Kind of normal, I guess, but it also echoes something special because. I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to start from scratch by yourself in a big city that you have no idea how you're going to navigate, and finding people to help you along the way is pretty much the only way you'll sort of like make it through. So it is kind of like it is kind of an index in that way, like that, and really like the characters sort of fall into place as figures that help Kwezi along the way. Each and every one of his companions, his friends. So I think it's close to home in that. I mean, the main architecture of the story is kind of like similar to mine, but the details, of course, are very much different. I mean, the supporting characters are more different because now it's coming from influences and the different story archetypes that I like, that I really like, feel like are strong and help story, the story to develop, as well as the characters to sort of like chime in properly in the way that you want with the reader. So Mohau, for instance, is definitely the guy you want to go to for some wisdom, but also someone who's going to be resolute, someone who's going to, in a space where you're discovering your powers, you want someone who kind of just has got the answers, and can lead you in the right direction and has a moral compass that is unshaking. You've got Koi on this side, who's also like a Khoisan archer or hunter, tracker, and we joke now that he sort of developed into this blind moral compass and that's sort of like his tagline. But he's a warrior, and he's sort of like, but he's also very resolute on his ideas on justice. So he becomes that character that always keeps Kwezi's, his ends towards justice, or his direction he's always pivoted towards justice. And he needs characters like that to remind him of what's important. It's not about the flash. It's not about, it's about getting the job done. And that character sort of like helps in that way. Then, of course, you've got Azania, who's a very powerful character, right over here. And she is sort of like, she's a huge challenge to the character. Kwezi, I mean, she sort of like would be the main superhero if it wasn't for this dimwit Kwezi standing in the way. So there's that real, like, it feels like, from outside perspective, it looks like a dynamic that could be romantic, but actually in the narrative it starts to formulate into more of a brother and sister, or even bigger concepts that and it's pretty nice to have a character that's sort of brash and really challenges Kwezi on a real personal level to make him become better. So in a nutshell, that's how these characters come together, and then it's Gold City, and then once the pages come along, page to page, issue to issue.
I appreciate that story, but you skillfully got me back. You took me. You didn't. You explained the characters to me. You started off in a good place, but you're impenetrable. I see. You're guarded.
Am I?
Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I think if I can go back and then just really, just to really hammer it home, it's really, leaving home to find yourself or to find your purpose type of story. Something that echoes with myself personally very much.
Okay. I'll buy it. Thanks. I mean, I'll tell you, just like, the reason I asked that question, I made a movie called Stone Cold, Jane Austen, right? And what I can tell you is I just made a very silly movie. I wanted to make an absurd movie about like the worst rock star that ever lived, who was a dick to everyone, but had a heart of gold, like a sort of like I wanted to create a character where you rooted for him, you wanted him to win, but he was just he couldn't get past himself, and he needed so badly to be a rock star that it just did everything wrong. Sort of like a David Brent from The Office, like or even
right.
better, you know who's a better reference is, do you ever seen Eastbound and Down by any chance?
No, I haven't.
Danny McBride. Okay, so like this, it's the story of this baseball player retired who used to be like the hot shit ever. Now he's like his late 30s, nearly his 40s, overweight. He still thinks he's a rock star, but he's an old man, and he can't grow old. So I made this movie And there are scenes in the movie that are like just dumb and how he confronts the industry. But afterwards, I really realized, I may have realized at the time, I don't think so, that, I was in a band. There was so much pressure in our band to be successful that I turned into a real fucking tyrant. And in my own mind, I just made every bad decision. And then after the latter half of my band, where we were busy blowing up globally, this documentary maker made a film about us. And instead of it being the film about this rock band breaking America, it turned to be this like almost comedic story of this rock band falling to pieces. Now, I've never seen that film. I never want to see that film. It's me at my worst. But I think in retrospect, my movie was that movie I made was the most cathartic thing for me. Like after I made that film, I realized that I accidentally dealt with my demons by making that film. I made a movie about the worst part of myself, and it's brutal. And when I watched the film, I'm like, fuck, I did all of those things. I can totally see where all of these scenes came from. And so
it's kind of weird. I think, isn't it sort of like also kind of like you're coming up. You kind of also have to give yourself like room to assess it from what age group you were in, So if you're much younger doing that, it's kind of understandable because you're impressionable and there's a certain standard of how you operate, and you think that being a dick is actually synonymous with you being effective. And
I didn't know I was being a dick. Whatever. I thought I was being a leader. I didn't know the difference,
Exactly, right? And you don't have the hindsight to know the difference. And I think that's the thing. And we were all corralled into a way of thinking and a way of acting, right? Because it's put out there as a standard thing, and you sort of like you jump into that role, and then you put it out into your own life, and all of a sudden, when you have your own ideas about yourself and who you are, you look back into that and you're like, ugh. There's no way that was me, dude. But you just remembered role, right?
Do you remember? I think I was poisoned by the book. My favorite book ever.
Yeah.
When I was younger, was Richard Branson's "Losing My Virginity." Have you ever heard that book? Ever heard of that book?
I heard about that.
It was like the all-time business bestseller of all time. Like because Richard Branson.
Right. This is in the 80s or something, right?
Yes, 80s, 90s. Yeah. He just turned himself into the richest man in the world and bought an island, right? And it was such an inspiring book. His journey was, but I'm thinking about this now. His journey was like, I said I'm going to start an airline, and everybody said I was fucking crazy, and I was like, fuck you, and I started an airline. I was going to start a comic book, and everyone said no one can start a comic book. You can't do it, and I was like, fuck all of you, I'm going to do it. And I think when I was in my band, that was going through my head, like, I'm going to do this thing. And if anyone tells, like if a person comes up and says, listen, I've tried that. I'm going to give you some good advice. I'd be like, la, 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 don't need your advice. I'm going to do this.
Naysayer. And we can't help but stumble into that. I mean, like, obviously, geez, man. And actually, it's a good example that you raised with Richard Branson, because I mean you can imagine, but I mean like really, you can imagine that. I mean he's a great guy, and I've heard epic stuff. I mean he's been in South Africa to some of his establishments,
awesome. No doubt about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I'm sure there's a prick in there somewhere. There's definitely.
I think. Okay, no, I don't.
Not even if you mean well. Not even if he means well. I mean, you've got to have like moments where you just.
You got to be. You got to be ruthless at some time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why we got that deep, but anyway.
It's that time of the night. What is it? 10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock. Yes. I wanted you earlier on. Can you show me your favorite panel from your DC and explain to me why it's your favorite panel? That's what I wanted to ask.
Okay.
I'm so jealous.
Okay.
I touch it.
Okay. All right. Feast your eyes. I think maybe I should get. No, you know what? There it is.
Oh, wow. Holy.
Have a look at that.
I love that.
So he's like the whole title of the particular episode is called Superman Punch. And to beat Killer Croc, he has to sort of like while fighting Killer Croc, he has a a flashback to when he was younger and he was hanging out with his older brother, and he was basically teaching him the Superman punch. And that's a nice callback for later on now when he's fighting Killer Croc, and he's got he's obviously he's already stabbed him on this panel here. So he's really got him in the corner. And the final blow to him, of course, is the Superman punch. Kind of classic.
Now, it is beautiful, and I love it. But tell me a little bit of insight of what made that. How did you get to that?
Well, apart from a very good script.
So what would the script say for that panel?
So the script was really, really, very descriptive. It was, like I said, Cameras Johnson really writes really descriptive scripts, right to the, not so much to the actual choreography of the fight scene itself, but this particular move was very specific. The fact that I had to consider that. So Batwing's suit has the centerpiece here, which obviously has the shape of the bat, but also it's got a very bright fluorescent light that can blind you. So he uses it as something of a weapon as well. So in previous panels he uses that, but you'll actually see that.
Yeah.
On the second last panel of the page. He's shooting, obviously, his bat gun, and then that clips onto the wall, and he now yanks himself forward, sort of like catapults himself forward towards Croc, and then gives him the Superman punch. So it's a Superman punch reloaded to 2.0 type of thing, right? So and the script itself was pretty descriptive. With the gun and how he sort of like how those mechanisms move, but obviously it's my job to sort of choose the shot that will work. And if the writer tells me that is the main shot, that's the big money shot for the comic, for the whole episode, I have to make sure that one, all the other panels can be okay, but this one has to be proper. So.
You get nervous when you do that. And you do lots and lots and lots of sketches, or do you just figure it out and then you go for it?
I just kind of figure it out. I really haven't. It's that nerve, being nervous. It's good. It's good. I do get nervous a lot, but like when it's time to go, it's time to go for me. So it's just always more about like how well can I get. I think my challenge right now actually is not so much overthinking, but like over finessing it. So if there's an opportunity for me to relook it or try it again from try the shot from a different angle, I'll probably try it, and that can have its own consequences as far as deadlines and stuff. But what's nice about it is that guaranteed the more you work a project, or the more you work a page, the more tighter it is and more unique it becomes. So I'm getting to learn that the older I get into the industry. It's good that I'm doing comics now, because at least I won't just be working from talents or that I've got. It's more about like now thinking about it. Okay, fine. What's been done? How many shots have we seen Batman or Batwing in? Maybe one day Spider-Man. How many times have we seen Spider-Man, shoot a web? And what is a new angle that we could actually see that in? So it's nice to do that. It's nice to work those out. It also kind of works for the work that I want to go into one day, which is, or soon enough, not one day, but very soon, hopefully, which is storyboarding. I like the idea of storyboarding. I mean, did you know that the entire Mad Max Fury Road movie was storyboard?
I do work with storyboard artists every now and then. I could give you a shot at that if that's something you want to do.
Oh yeah, dude! Like that's really cool. Like working out cinematography or how shots will work from scene to scene, and figuring out movement, and that's become really cool.
Okay,
Visual
we'll chat
director
about that.
seat.
I've got a technical question though about that panel you showed me.
Yeah.
And that is, what exercises is Croc doing to have like 26 abs?
Oh man, the age-old question: why are our villains, superheroes always so super buff?
They're so fit. They must exercise all the time, that Crocs.
Why? I don't know. You know what? You've got me on the ropes on this one. I really don't know. But all I know is that when I was a kid, that looked cool. The more physically, impressive a guy looked, the more you trusted him with, with the heavy lifting of stuff. I don't know, and then really like came as such it's a proper comic book culture trope. They
Maybe
have
you
to
need to
be
do one
muscle bound.
new comic book series of like all the heroes are overweight and they don't look good, they're nerdy, they're not fit, and they run they get tired easily.
Oh man, I think I'm due for something like that. Something that sort of doesn't take itself too seriously. Something nice. Deadpool-ish, like something that's really
hello.
offbeat and just.
Excuse me.
Oh. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. I know that we have something in the works somehow, don't we?
How dare you pretend it doesn't exist? That's offensive.
Like you said, I keep my cards close to my chest.
I see that. Thank you, Lloyd. I've got two more questions for you, and then I will let you be. The second last question is, what do you think? You have a very interesting career. I love chatting to you. Whenever we talk, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. I love your mind. I love the work you do, and your path to where you are is so cool. I mean, to me, I love your road to DC because it's kind of amplifies the road that you're on, the path that you're on, the direction you've taken, and taking risks. You're a risk taker. Yes. So I ask you, what do you think, if you look back in your career, has been your biggest obstacle or the hardest thing you've had to overcome that has made you into like the person you are and doing what you're doing now?
Oh wow. Okay. Look, I've had a series of milestones. I really have had a series of milestones, so it's really been incremental. But obviously, there are always those moments that you feel like something happened here, and it was different, and it was definitely a big jump. I think obviously this particular gig was the question the most challenging.
Yeah, the biggest obstacle in your life you've had to overcome.
The biggest. Man. You know what? There's a lot of obstacles. Hang on, but I will be specific. I won't. I don't want to cop out on this one. There's okay, fine. I mean, let's have a look at publishing, for instance. Publishing is a huge issue with getting books out there. Before 2016, I was self-published. That means that everything was just on my shoulders to get the book out, and that is a lot harder than It seems it means distribution is on you. It means printing the things is on you. Making sure that the quality is, making sure that spell checks and making sure that the whole thing makes sense and is of a right quality. So it was a lot harder then to break into the market that I've always wanted to. And look, I'm still trying. I'm still digging away at it. My mission is sort of to have this as accessible as possible, like the project Kwezi itself, and then it's always been, I've always been growing to the direction of how do I get more people to read it, and it's harder said than done because again, it's the distribution, it's the publishing and distribution, which luckily for me, I was, I met up with, a lady by the name of Dishanka from New Africa Books, who still published the book, and they were gracious enough to try it out. Managed to, within that same year, be part of the homebrew selection at Exclusive Books, and that was the start of seeing how successful it can be. Within a month or something, it was sold out. So our first run was sold out. So the access to just that space for me was big, because before that it was just like the different small cons that we had, comic conventions that we have, not even the Comic Con that we had in 2018. We're talking now back in 2014, 15. So back then it was FanCon with Reader's Den and this and that, or Rage in Johannesburg. So like I said earlier on, the market was just not that big, and the biggest challenge is really activating a market to number one, recognize the title and the characters, fall in love with them, and root for them. It's not as easy as you think, because you can only dial up those cards, only so many times, right? The fact that he's South African, which is a draw card, sure, fine, or this and that makes him special.
Yeah, that's the entry point, but then you got to get beyond that.
But then you got to get beyond that. It has to actually, it actually has to tick and be alive and feel like something, and not just a piece of advertising for something else. It's an actual story, a piece of art. So it's been about cultivating people, and then for me it's been difficult because it's a long road. It's definitely a long journey, and it's also like, especially in the beginning, it hardly paid. So there's that. It was understanding that I'm playing the long game with this project. I wanted to succeed, but I understand the limitations that exist. I might not be a Jim Lee or a Stan Lee right now. That's definitely not in the cards, but I'm in the right place to start something. And then so it was a challenge, and then also maintaining it. We're at 15 episodes right now, 15 issues of the comic book, right? And that doesn't sound like much if you're in the States, but here it's a lot, because the incentive to do it is not proportional to us doing it. It is to the amount of work. So it's the investment into it has been
exhausting.
Yeah, exhausting. Yeah.
And is the DC relationship? Sorry, say that again.
I got a couple of grays to prove it as well. So take my word for it.
Has the DC relationship by any chance opened potential doors for Kwezi to slip it through there, or is that something we can't talk about?
Absolutely. I can say yes, it definitely has opened doors, but it's definitely something we can't talk about.
Okay, cool.
So look, I partnered with Marsh Media, a production company here in Cape Town, back in 2019, with the idea and the dream to adapt Kwezi, the comic book, into the animated series. for a young adult, audience. So we've been working tirelessly for the past nearly 2 years now. Development for that. We completed development now. We've got series Bible, pilot script, script breakdowns for the first season, a trailer that we wrapped up as well. So it's that type of stuff that makes it worth it. It's the fact that the project adapts with the times and does. I mean, it's the milestone conversation again. The natural progression from a comic book is to go into animation, because then the world just gets bigger and gets more explored. Also, it means that, again, like I said earlier on, my whole thing here, the whole gist is to get more South African kids reading or watching this stuff, because otherwise, back to square one, how I grew up and what the stuff that we watched. Not that it was bad, I grew up.
But you're going to inspire a generation of kids with what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's also, like I said, it's a portal into who we are and our cultures. It's nice to see ourselves in an entertaining medium that's got no other, agendas but to entertain you and make you feel better, feel stronger about yourself, and have a different, and just have, expand imaginations, our imaginations, and that alone, So it's planting that seed and watching kids respond to it. That makes it worth it. Watching, would be artists that would have been me a few years ago, much younger, of course, but watching them and seeing them look at Kwezi and then think, maybe I can do that. It's a lot of things coupled together.
Thank you. Really, thanks for your time. All right, last question, then you're going, and you can answer this one quickly. This is an easy one.
Please make it easy.
Yeah, I do. I ask this of every guest. I ask this question, and that is, now you get the vibe of this podcast. It's super chill. It's just chatty chat and unraveling stories. Who do you think would make a great guest for this, who has an interesting story to tell that maybe isn't told?
Oh,
I wrote down here, I can't read my handwriting now, though. Bongiso Bongani?
Bonisa Bonani, yeah.
Bonisa Bonani, Bongani.
Yeah, I think you'd like him. Yeah, I think you'd like him. I think you'd like him.
Anyone else?
Him. I think you'd like Clyde.
Who's
Beach.
Clyde?
Clyde is he works with me on Kwezi, creative director on Kwezi. So he's cool. He's a mega mind on comic book and
Oh, nice.
Fandom. So you'll have a great conversation with him on that stuff. Who else?
Can be from any universe. Doesn't have to be a comic book. Yeah.
Can be. Oh yeah. I mean, I mean, there's some really cool. You know what? Taco Universe.
What?
Have you heard of him?
No. Taco Universe.
Yeah, well, that's his handle on Instagram. I don't want to butcher his name.
I know. Oh wait, do I know? That sounds familiar, actually.
He makes, he's a visual artist and he makes animated stuff. He's an animator, and his designs are amazing, and he's got such a cool visual language for kiddies animation for Africa. Like, he's found a very nice style that kind of works. And if I'm telling you, once it really pops, it's going to be amazing. So that guy would be cool. Tako.
Okay,
Taco Universe.
Got you. Nice.
Who else? I don't want to leave any people behind, and then people are like, "Oh, bro, why'd you leave me behind? Why didn't you mention me?" I don't want to be
It's not
that
the
guy.
Oscars, bro.
Eh? Well, you
It's not
never
the
know,
Oscars.
man.
Fair enough.
You never know. You never
you're giving me
know.
some
These
good
things
names here.
start. I'm giving you some good names. I'll drop a few more.
Okay.
I think you should also have a chat with Mohale Mashiko.
Nice.
She's cool people's very talented writer / singer. Who else have we got? I'm not forgetting anyone, but I know that you need to also check out Willem Samuel. That's an unexpected one, but I think he's South African treasure as well, as far as comic books are concerned.
Cool. Brother,
I'll give you more names because I've got to make sure that you get more of the people from my industry jumping onto your podcast and letting you know what's up.
I'm keen, man. I'm keen, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate your time tonight. I know it's late, and I know you never check your phone messages. I did check if you wanted to maybe do this earlier, but you didn't bother to respond. So eat that.
No, don't do that to me. I was watching my phone all day. I was very vigilant today.
Much love to you, bro.
Thank you so much,
and lots of respect, and thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. It's been a blast. Much appreciated, and cheers to all your listeners and viewers.